This video is sponsored by Simply Safe, and let me tell you, there's no safe like Simply Safe.
Welcome to Electrified. It's your host, Dylan Loomis. Quick shout out to my new or updated patrons, Mark P, Roger R, YouTube Patreon, and Todd L. Thank you all for choosing to support the channel. Real quick, on the new thumbnail situation, I've seen the comments that some of you strongly prefer the older version, so I hear you. I'm gonna run the new ones just for a few weeks. I just need something different for now in the recommendation algorithm. But after a few weeks, I will run a poll here and on X, and we'll see what the majority prefer, and then I'll decide what to do from there. But as always, thank you for the feedback. We may be in a bit of a lull when it comes to the Robotaxi expansion right now, but basically everywhere else you look at Tesla right now, there are signs of significant expansion underway. Not only is Tesla actually moving forward with its own Terafab, but we now have Samsung, who's more of a partner with Tesla, announcing a second factory in Texas. This one also in Taylor, set for mass production next year. It decided on this second factory as major US tech companies line up to place their orders amid constrained capacity at TSMC. The project has entered the early stages of regulatory preparation, and council documents show the extension allows the city to continue supporting regulatory review for the planned second factory. Those documents show the motion passed unanimously. The planned Fab 2 facility is said to be about 2.7 million square feet, the same size as Fab 1, which we know is currently under construction. And construction of Fab 2 will begin once the building permits are issued. But the news that was largely being overlooked, beyond Fab 2, more factories could follow. Samsung bought 1,268 acres of land in Taylor to build its semi-cluster, which is large enough to accommodate up to 10 fabs. The campus will focus on producing chips for high-performance compute and automotive applications using the company's 2-nanometer process. Now we have reporting that Samsung has already secured 121 customers for the campus. Potential large orders could come from major tech firms like Google, AMD, and ByteDance. The first plant is preparing to start mass production next year as part of Samsung's deal with Tesla. As a refresher, Fab 1 is preparing to start mass production next year as part of Samsung's deal with Tesla. They signed that $16.5 billion contract, to which Elon said that was just the beginning and it would likely far exceed that number in time. But it'll start with making AI 5 and AI 6 chips. But for now, it remains unclear whether the extra orders from Tesla have expanded the scope of the deal, which previously covered only AI 6 chips. Don't forget, at Fab 1 for a few months, Samsung was struggling to find any customers until Tesla came in and basically saved the day. As far as we know, Tesla scooped up nearly all of the expected available capacity at Fab 1. And now, just a few months later, with that vote of confidence from Tesla, they apparently have 121 different customers lined up for Fab 2. And as you'll see shortly, there's very good reason for why there is a surge for 2-nanometer demand right now. So to be clear, Fab 2 is not primarily dedicated to Tesla like Fab 1. However, given Tesla's existing partnership with Samsung and what Tesla did for Samsung to get them that first major order and major customer in Taylor, there's a very strong chance that at least a portion of the Fab 2 capacity will end up in Tesla's hands. So why the rush for 2-nanometer demand? Well, this is an article from Semi-Analysis and Dylan Patel, who's widely regarded as one of the best semiconductor industry analysts that we have. The bottlenecks in this industry continue to shift every few months, but right now it is silicon supply. There's simply not enough advanced logic and memory fabrication. And remember, Tesla's Terafab will be unique because they're combining all three: the logic, the memory, and the packaging, all under one roof. TSMC calls its 3-nanometer chips N3, and up until today, N3 demand has been driven primarily by consumer electronics, smartphones, laptops, computers, etc. But this year, we have all of the main AI accelerator families also transitioning to N3. So this sudden convergence of N3 adoption coupled with continued growth of AI compute demand has resulted in a huge demand shock for N3 wafer capacity. And these capacity constraints may therefore push customers to explore greater foundry diversification, which is exactly what Tesla's doing, going to both TSMC and Samsung for AI 5, 6, and beyond. And look, if we want to continually have an excellent handle on Tesla as a company and as investors and fans, we have to understand the silicon world now. And of course, in the months and years ahead, I'll do everything in my power to continually educate everybody, including myself, on the depths of this industry. But this year, AI infrastructure customers are getting clear priority over consumer electronics. AI accelerator designs usually have bigger die sizes and more complex packaging requirements, which translate to higher average selling prices. And why can't TSMC just add more N3 wafer starts? Like memory suppliers, TSMC is constrained by available clean room space. Additional usable fab area must first be built before equipment can be installed and new capacity brought online. And for the next 2 years, TSMC will not be able to add enough capacity to fully meet demand. So clearly a bottleneck exists, and we cannot forget about Elon's bet that at Tesla's new Terafab, expected to be 2 nanometers, Elon will be able to eat cheeseburgers and smoke cigars in the clean room. So obviously Elon believes that the industry is doing something suboptimally with the clean rooms. And all we've really heard about Elon's idea is that it has to do with fully sealed and isolated wafers, or these advanced micro environments. And then for today, one term that will come up often going forward is CoWoS, which just stands for chip on wafer on substrate. This is TSMC's naming for its packaging step of the process. And zooming out industry-wide, 2.5D is the overall type of packaging that the industry is largely using right now. And it gets that naming because it's somewhere between 2D and 3D. And so the packaging process is largely where you take the logic die, which is the system on chip, and then you actually pair it or connect it to the HBM, or the high bandwidth memory. And the HBM is typically made up of a stack of somewhere between 8 to 12 dies. And rather than being a fully 3D process where you would stack the SoC and the HBM on top of each other, they are side by side, and then effectively connected by these microscopic copper wires, where both are connected to a silicon interposer and then ultimately to a substrate, which acts as the mechanical structure. So the memory and the logic and the interposer are all very brittle, so the substrate is effectively what holds it together, gives it some structure. And again, it has copper and solder balls for actually bringing power up through the motherboard and into the interposer and transferring that power evenly to the HBM and SoC. All that to say, one of the things I'm most excited for Tesla's Terafab is that they'll be able to develop their own processes for the logic, for the memory, and for that final packaging step. Already, these foundries have their own versions of how they do things and what they specialize in, but Tesla will be able to specialize for exactly what it needs. And again, the plan is to have that specialization at all 3 steps. And this year, packaging engineers and foundries have converged on the same conclusion. 2.5D integration is now the primary tech responsible for power delivery, signal integrity at extreme bandwidths, mechanical stability across large areas, and in some cases, even active functionality. AKA, it's where everything comes together. And this 2.5D packaging is being pushed to its limits, so the question is, what will the next phase look like, as these companies are now being forced to decide what problems are worth solving in silicon and which are not. And at inflection points like that, for a company that's so heavily focused on vertical integration, it'll be a great thing for Tesla to get to that point. Now, we have to understand Tesla's Terafab might be close to a zero until closer to 2030. But we know the time is going to pass anyways, so for Tesla to set itself up through the 2030s in position A, where it's less reliant on the rest of the industry, makes such a big risk like this actually make sense. I was able to find a simpler graphic comparing the 2.5D process where we are now to a potential 3D future. Again, the 3D is where the dies would be stacked on top of each other directly onto the substrate. Whereas today, the stack of high bandwidth memory dies and the logic dies are still next to each other. So again, if you hear me say CoWoS in the future, that's TSMC's process for the packaging step. Chip on wafer, on substrate. And one more oversimplified diagram to show how these connections in the interposer and through the substrate actually work. And this connection between the high bandwidth memory and the logic happen at the packaging phase. I will say it might feel a bit overwhelming at first trying to get into the silicon space, but I have found it to be so incredibly fascinating. Not just because so much of our world is now directly reliant on this technology, but when you understand that these chips that are mostly made of sand and all of these EUV machines, the most complicated machines that humans are making right now, that are massive to do this microscopic etching on this sand to then power most of the technology that we know and love, is really just mind-blowing stuff. And when you consider geopolitics and consequences of the war, like a potential shortage in helium that there's currently no replacement for in silicon production, you just have this fascinating web of factors, and all of the biggest AI CEOs and tech CEOs now speed running to build out their own data centers, both on Earth and in space. Here's something I think about often. How many times a day do you check your Tesla app? Honestly, the charge status, Sentry mode alerts, dash cam viewer, cabin temperature before you go outside. Some of us can be a little obsessed with monitoring our cars from our phones. I'll admit, I am. But it took me an embarrassingly long time to realize I should have that same level of visibility into my actual home. And not just a camera, but a real system, sensors, alerts, live feeds, the works. And that realization is a big part of why I partnered with SimpliSafe, the sponsor of this video. I told you guys about our old house flooding. It was quite devastating. Insurance back and forth for weeks, dozens of hours of cleanup, and a ton of sentimental property ruined forever. What I haven't really talked about is our family's anxiety that stuck with us after that. So now I have SimpliSafe water sensors placed in the spots that matter. Anywhere water might come in the house, under sinks, basement walls. So if anything goes wrong, I get an alert on my phone right away, just like I would get a Sentry mode alert with my Tesla. And that's what I love about the system. You can tailor it to your life. I have motion sensors I activate when Ashley and I travel, door sensors on every entry point, and cameras around the house that I can pull up live from anywhere. And the app is genuinely where it all comes together. One tap and you're looking at live camera feeds. You can arm and disarm the system, check the sensor status. It's clean, it's fast, and it really is the kind of interface that a Tesla owner would appreciate. It just works. And what sealed it for me when I was researching is that SimpliSafe has no long-term contracts, which was huge. Monitoring plans start at around $1 a day with no hidden fees. I did the entire installation myself. But they do have professional installation too if that's more your speed. And there's a reason they've been named the best home security system by US News and World Report for 5 years in a row. So if you already live the monitoring everything from your phone lifestyle like I do, I think you owe it to yourself to have that same visibility into your home. I partnered with SimpliSafe to get you guys an exclusive deal so you can save 50% on your SimpliSafe security system when you sign up for a professional monitoring plan, and you'll get your first month free. Visit simplisafe.com/electrified to customize yours. And remember, there's no safe like SimpliSafe. The Department of the Interior just put out a press release saying Tesla and LG Energy are expanding their partnership with a supply agreement to build a $4.3 billion LFP prismatic battery cell facility in Lansing, Michigan. Production to launch next year. Meaning American-made cells will power Tesla's Megapack 3 and energy storage systems produced in Houston. We've actually known about this news since July of last year when LG made it public that they had a supply contract for over $4 billion with some company, but at the time they did not name the customer. However, the speculation was it was Tesla. And depending on your perspective, this one might be even sweeter because originally this was part of Ultium Cells, meaning it was a deal between LG and GM. But spring of last year, GM sold its entire stake back to LG, and then LG pivoted the facility from NMC chemistry to LFP and to prismatic cells. So Tesla scooped up all of that supply that GM did not have the demand for. And this is a triple threat. Number one, avoids those Chinese tariffs on LFP cells. It will then qualify all of this LFP supply for some domestic incentives through the IRA. And third, it will strengthen not just Tesla's supply chain, but the US national supply supply chain for battery supply as well. A very important distinction to make here, this site is fully owned and operated by LG, meaning all of the 45X credits, the production tax credits, will be going to LG. However, the standard industry practice is for these battery producers getting those credits to lower the cost of the cells or the price of the cells for the ultimate consumer, which in this case is Tesla. Meaning, indirectly, Tesla is likely to benefit greatly from these production tax credits, they just won't be receiving them directly. However, don't forget Tesla will still be able to most likely get some direct credits, being the $10 per kilowatt hour for taking those cells and assembling them into modules and packs in Houston. Again, specifically for Megapack 3. So the $35 per kilowatt hour will go direct to LG, and then they will lower the price of the cells for Tesla. Then Tesla will buy those cells as the consumer, assemble those cells into modules and packs in Houston, and then get that $10 per kilowatt hour credit directly. Just keep in mind that while Megapack 3 production is expected to begin in Houston at smaller scales later this year, this new LFP cell supply from Michigan is not expected to be available for Tesla until sometime around August 2027. So there will be roughly a 1-year period where Tesla has to get LFP supply from either Nevada or overseas. But again, long term, this is a big win for Tesla because largely Tesla's getting its LFP cells now from CATL. And right now, the current tariff rate on cells from China is in the neighborhood of 70%. And Tesla's own LFP factory, around 7 gigawatt hours of eventual capacity, is starting production on a very small scale this year. But as we know, that will certainly take some time to ramp up and be ready. So not only will Tesla eventually avoid those high tariffs, but they'll also benefit from the direct manufacturing incentives available in the States. So the energy business never gets the love and attention it deserves, but starting sometime in 2028, this should be very margin accretive for Tesla. We had the Zacker sharing a short video of a parking lot full of Model Ys in Henderson in the suburbs of Las Vegas. He posed the question, could it be Tesla getting ready for a robotaxi launch in Las Vegas? And primarily the speculation is driven that these Model Ys have all of the camera cleaners, which so far the customer fleet has not gotten. And here are some photos to confirm the camera washer. It should be noted that parking lot is indeed a self-serve test drive lot for Tesla, but as we know, Las Vegas is one of the cities that Tesla plans to launch in the first half of this year. So nothing official, but I would say those camera washers and the red color that Tesla's been using for unsupervised vehicles in Austin is an encouraging sign. Another city you'll find on Tesla's list for the first half is Dallas. And Sawyer got a photo from a follower, again, of a red Model Y with the rear camera washer, doing some testing in Dallas, Texas. And both these vehicles and the ones in the lot in Las Vegas all had Texas plates. Plus, one of the Model Ys in Dallas was spotted simulating a pickup and a drop-off. So we're roughly halfway through the first half of this year, and we've had very little robotaxi motion. So in the second half of the first half, things should really pick up. And Jesse shared a video saying another unsupervised robotaxi was added to the fleet. Now Tesla's up to 3 in Austin. As I've said for a while, I do not think we should be placing so much emphasis on the numbers from the robotaxi tracker. But there is a chance we are in the midst of unsupervised, slowly scaling in Austin right now. We started with around 8 unsupervised vehicles, then Tesla went down to 1 in a limited geofence for a while, but now we may be reversing that trend, going positive once again. Too early to say if that limited geofence has been expanded for unsupervised rides, but certainly something we will keep an eye on. And on the Cybercab, Eric also said, we built the seat height to be in line with standard wheelchair seat height. Accessibility is very important in autonomous vehicles. Freedom of transportation for everyone is critical. Eric said this, combined with the door kinematics, a wheelchair can park parallel to the seat with plenty of room, unlike traditional doors. And just a fun fact, when Tesla was positioning the Cybercab at the pop-up, they were using a phone to control it. We also just had Sean Duffy say, are you ready to ditch your steering wheel? That referring to the first ever National AV Safety Forum that the Department of Transportation held. Then the lead Cybercab engineer Eric shared that post saying, "Thank you and your team for meeting with us this week at the AV Safety Forum. Innovative American-made AVs like the Cybercab will vastly improve roadway safety, and we look forward to working with you on launching them at scale this year." And we just got this from the Federal Register, the FMVSS modernization for number 102 to accommodate ADS-equipped vehicles. NHTSA is proposing to amend FMVSS 102, and in short, the proposed modification would accept vehicles equipped with automated driving systems that do not have manually operated driving controls from the requirement for a transmission shift position display. Meaning a vehicle like the Cybercab that will not have wheels or pedals would no longer need to display park neutral drive. So it's not groundbreaking, and there will be a comment period that lasts until April 15th this year, but we will take what we can get. And remember, all of these FMVSS modifications might be moot because Tesla already said even as they stand now, the Cybercab meets all of them. So unless NHTSA challenges Tesla's interpretation of all of that, we are no longer at the mercy of the FMVSS, at least when it comes to Cybercab. Yesterday, NVIDIA at GTC announced its own compute platforms for orbital data centers. Jensen said space computing, the final frontier, has arrived. As we deploy satellite constellations and explore deeper into space, intelligence must live wherever data is generated. The first time Elon said anything about data centers in space, there was immense backlash across all different industries saying that Elon was crazy and that it was not ready. And while we may have some time between now and when we have this at any sort of scale, very clearly for Jensen to announce this publicly having NVIDIA's backing, we can be sure that the rest of the industry is going to try to follow suit and be a part of this next frontier. And it really is so typical to have Jensen come after the fact and tout orbital data centers and everybody's clapping and cheering and high-fiving. But months ago when Elon first brought up this idea and really started making the push for it, it was largely met with backlash and mocking. Anyway, NVIDIA said that its Vera Rubin Space One module will be used on space missions led by multiple companies. The chips are specifically engineered for size, weight, and power-constrained environments. Importantly, Jensen said NVIDIA is working with partners on a new computer for orbital data centers, but there are still engineering hurdles to overcome. In space, there's no convection, there's just radiation. And so we have to figure out how to cool these systems out in space, but we've got lots of great engineers working on it. I think that's an important point because you'll see some people saying that, oh, space is so cold, so cooling really won't be a challenge. But according to Jensen, clearly, for now, it still is a challenge. So yes, there will be hurdles and obstacles between now and then. However, directionally, this all but confirms where everyone is going to be running. And as I've always said, any competition is actually a great thing for Tesla. And when these engineering bottlenecks get figured out, because they will get figured out, removing all of those major bottlenecks on Earth, the environmental impacts, all of the permitting, all of the land availability concerns, the liquid cooling requirements and the water consumption, the power availability, electricity supply, the interconnection queues, all of that largely gets wiped out when those engineering challenges for orbital data centers are solved. And Elon just said the AI race will come down to scaling power and chip output. So this is exactly why Elon is strategically positioning his companies as we see him doing right now. And on the AI race, Ashutosh said Google DeepMind is destined to win the AI race, to which Elon said for a few years, then SpaceX will far exceed everyone combined. My question here, was Elon thinking that this SpaceX entity would include Tesla at that time? Because if it didn't, we know Tesla's an AI company and it would be very hard for SpaceX to exceed Tesla if they were in the group of everyone else combined. Now, that's obviously reaching, but could Elon be embedding something in that statement? You guys know I'm usually not one to entertain things like this, but I'll be honest, I was the one that kept going back to that thought in this case. And given SpaceX's dual class share structure that could make things easier for Elon's ownership, a SpaceX acquisition of Tesla in the next few years continues to make more and more sense. Not that it wouldn't come without any trade-offs, but the synergies and the overlap and the partnership continues to grow by the week. Max from Tesla said the team is all in on V4 cabinets. The brand new V4 cabinet line at Giga New York is automotive grade and spooling up for charging ubiquity around the world. He shared a pretty cool black and white photo, but the big news was that Giga New York has built their last V3 supercharger cabinet, marking the end to 15,000 plus V3 cabinets over 7 years. Now the V4 cabinet line is ramping up, which means all new supercharger locations going forward will be true V4 sites. And Tesla's now planning Australia's biggest EV charging site with more than 25 bays. Site plans say it'll be located in the town of Mackay in Queensland. The reporting is saying they're likely to be V4 supercharger stalls capable of up to 250 kilowatts. Just remember, the Cybertruck is not currently available in Australia, so those higher supercharging speeds aren't really applicable. This image was shared by a European Tesla customer, and the UI said, upcoming country border, supervised FSD will become unavailable. And that was while using enhanced autopilot from Italy to Austria. To be clear, this one could be nothing. These notifications have been around before, but I'm sharing as a reminder that Elon said he's expecting supervised FSD approval from the RDW by March 20th, which is just 3 days. Nvidia and Uber announced a deeper partnership aiming for driverless level 4 robotaxis by 2028. In the press release, they do say the service would start in LA and San Francisco in the first half of 2027 and scale to 28 cities globally by 2028. But if you actually read the release, you'll find the driverless operations are not expected until 2028. For now, until we get more information on the program, I've said what I want to say. Number one, getting 98% of the way to autonomous driving right now is, relatively speaking, pretty easy. So companies making announcements and having demos that look pretty good is not that difficult. But what people fail to understand is how excruciatingly difficult the final 2% is, and further, how long that actually takes. And I've already done a few episodes on how Nvidia is just providing tools. Legacy Auto still needs to take these tools and know what to do. So these companies can't buy these tools and then magically overnight have a working neural network that is capable of FSD. So personally, I would be very surprised if any of these legacy auto companies are able to remove the driver even by 2028. Because for now, that's the plan, but I am expecting delays. And as we've seen across the legacy auto industry and all of these companies pulling back from EVs, taking tens of billions of dollars of write-downs, they are struggling. Profitability is struggling. They need to do or say something to their investors to avoid mass exodus. So they really have no choice but to say, hey guys, look, here's our solution. We're going to figure this out too with the help of Nvidia. And the unfortunate reality is somebody that's still invested in a GM or a Ford, no offense at all if that is you, everybody has different objectives, but I'm saying the average investor that's not closely plugged into the autonomous driving space isn't going to know the difference. They'll see the demos and the partnerships and how good things look already, but 2028 is going to roll around and those people will be wondering what in the world is going on when Tesla is scaling its robotaxi network, while most of legacy auto is still nowhere near unsupervised autonomy. Elon said the new Roadster unveil is probably in late April. And he also said the new Roadster unveil hopefully next month. It will be a banger next level. So late April is the new expectation, pushed back from April 1st, but that new date is not set in stone. And Travis Kalanick, the founder of Uber, said, when I've run into people who are in the know, I inquire, they tell me nothing, but their eyebrows raise and their eyes widen in a way that can only mean something of sorcery and magic is coming. The SEC is now preparing a proposal that would allow companies to report financial earnings semi-annually instead of quarterly. This proposal could be released as soon as April, and the proposal is expected to make quarterly reports optional rather than eliminating them entirely. So as I mentioned on X, this would be a great thing for the companies, but not so great for consumers, investors, and fans. And selfishly, for us to only get a peek behind the curtain twice a year for Tesla, that would be quite brutal. Tesla stock closed the day at $399.27, up 0.94%, while the NDX was up 0.51%. The volume was 22% below the average, still very depressed from where it was even late last year. Over the last 30 days, the average volume is right around 59 million, whereas in the second half of last year, it was closer to around 95 million. Don't forget, check out SimpliSafe linked below if you want to support the channel and, most importantly, protect your family. Even if you just start with one camera and work your way in over time, I really have found it to be a great system. Hope you all have a wonderful day, and a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters.